I did not want to make this video, but when I made my video on Silver Surfer, you guys were flaming me because I said it sucked.
Huh, I bet you were in diapers or yet to... They sucked? You're a young
You mid for saying they suck.
You suck.
I beg your pardon?
But anyways, what better time than to make this video now as the new Fantastic Four movie is coming out soon. For the longest time, I thought we could universally agree that the majority of Marvel movies that came out of the Fox era were just not that good. So I was actually so shocked to find out people like the Fantastic Four movies. I thought something was wrong with me. I was mad even, not because of the comments, okay? Opinions are subjective, that's completely fine. If you like these movies, you're a little bit insane, but I get it. If you like these movies, that's your opinion. But what I was mad about is the fact I was gaslit by these comments into watching this garbage movie again. I hate these movies even more now. So today, I'm going to be talking about why the Fantastic Four movies are so bad. I was only going to talk about the first one, but for some reason, people said I called the second movie trash in my other video, but complimented it the whole time, which is straight up a lie, by the way. If you actually watch the video, you would see me complain about a lot of the issues I had with it. The only thing I complimented was how they used Silver Surfer in this movie, and that's it. I don't know why people said that. Well, you guys might say, well, it's not the worst Marvel movie. It's maybe not the worst Fantastic Four movie. What about Fan4tastic? What about I'm not watching that movie. I'm not. The first one gave me trauma. I'm not watching this. I'm not going to waste my time again. You'd have to pay me to watch this movie.
Say that again?
Anyways, with that being said, let's get into these movies.
I'm in love with your phone. I'm in love with one.
Yeah, I don't know why people love these movies. A lot of times, some people will say, man, you know, you're just young. You don't understand that this was entertaining back in the day. And it's just all this nostalgia talk, all right? That argument just is so illogical. Could you imagine if a kid that grew up with the Emoji Movie grew up to say, hey, man, you can't criticize the Emoji Movie because, well, you just weren't around there during that time, and the vibes were so awesome during that time, man. You just don't get it. I will never be a victim to letting nostalgia probe my mind. All right, I can have some memories. All right, Spider-Man 3, for example, not the greatest movie. All right, everybody knows that. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, also not the greatest movie, but I have very fond memories and nostalgia tied to those movies, except I won't say, oh yeah, man, because of the time and the era I was, man, these movies were amazing. These movies were fantastic. No, I would be lying. We have to understand, when you make these movies based on comic book characters, it can really be make or break to how the general mainstream audience views these characters. Just look at DC in its entirety. All right, man, the movies have misrepresented these characters for the longest time, and now the general audience thinks they just suck. The first Fantastic Four movie is the biggest disservice to the Fantastic Four as a group. Sure, they're still popular, but I don't think they're really appreciated as much as they should be to the Marvel franchise. If we go back in time, let's say to pre-MCU, around and before the early 2000s, if you were to ask someone, who is a cooler group, the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, I'm sure 70 to 80% of people would tell you the Fantastic Four are way cooler. Now today, that number is probably perfectly switched around, alright? Most people would be telling you the Avengers are way more cooler. These movies just never gave us a reason to realize how cool the Fantastic Four originally are. These movies really convinced people that this group was just not as interesting as someone like the Avengers.
Wow, man.
So we begin with Reed convincing Victor Von Doom to study cosmic radiation, and there we go, guys. The biggest problem of this movie has already came in to play. Dr. Doom. Now, as you guys know, I already mentioned how much of a joke Dr. Doom is in both of these movies. His motives lack originality, he has little to no development into his villain origin, and he's extremely one-dimensional. He is evil for the sake of being evil, and he just comes out the gate and he's the biggest jerk to Reed for no reason. And I get that Doom has always been that character to be jealous of Reed, but this movie never explains why. I mean, he has his girl, he's the one funding this mission they're about to do, and Reed is depicted as a loser right now, if anything. So I want to know, what could he possibly be jealous about? This movie does a terrible job at showcasing one of the most iconic villains ever to be just some casual villain of the week. But on top of this, we also get introduced to Sue Storm, another problem for all of these movies. You see, Sue Storm in this movie is genuinely the biggest bum ever. She doesn't do a single thing, and for some reason these movies love to have scenes where she would just go invisible and then she would have like no clothes on. This happened like 5 different occasions. I don't know what their obsession was with that. All of this is extremely funny considering the fact Sue Storm is easily the most powerful member out of the Fantastic Four. So I don't know why she's written as a superhero without much power. And look, I get it. It's okay for these movies to be campy in their nature, especially considering the era these superhero movies were in around this time. But it just does not make sense to heavily attribute this to her character where she's constantly the butt of the joke. She's obviously not explicitly stated to be the butt of the joke, but she's kind of a dumb blonde. I know I mentioned before how Doctor Doom didn't need to be in these movies, but the fact you have a very powerful villain and another very powerful superhero and decide to nerf them both is the stupidest thing ever, because you genuinely could have made a balance between a group of really good superheroes with a semi-overpowered member against a really overpowered antagonist instead of making them both look like goofballs. You see, people love to complain about the nerfing of Silver Surfer in the second movie, but I actually think it works. You see, Silver Surfer is just really that overpowered, and the nerfing of his character makes complete sense to advance the plot of the movie, and they do it in a way that doesn't present him as unintelligent. But anyways, they get all their powers from space, and this is where the movie's pacing just gets really awful. From this point on, as viewers, we already know what's happening next. Okay, this movie teases us in all kinds of ways as if we don't know what's coming next, as if we're like little children. Once again, I don't think these scenes are like the biggest issue, okay? Johnny discovering his powers in a scene like this, I think it's pretty fun and it can work. Except these movies are like 90 minutes in length, and they genuinely take way too long to show us what they actually want to show us. We don't need pointless dialogue of Reed and Sue talking about their relationship issues we have no idea about. It's even worse when you know the whole point of the scene is just to show us their powers. It's like when you're a kid and you're doing all these good things for your parents just to get something out of them in the end. When your parents know the whole time that something's up, that you want something. It's honestly so predictable and does nothing for its 90 minutes of runtime. You might think, oh, it's a little bit of minutes. It's not that bad. This stuff adds up. And speaking of Reed and Sue, this movie is obsessed with basing their whole relationship in this movie off experiences we have no idea about. You might be able to get away with this like for a quick scene, but even that is pretty silly. But this genuinely happens the whole movie. They have the most uninteresting chemistry ever, because as viewers we don't have a clue what they're talking about. We even get like scenes of Sue just roaming around and seeing Reed's old accomplishments and expect us viewers to like resonate with her, to like, wow, see this as some impactful emotional moment when we don't know nothing about them, what that they're talking about, how they feel. We don't understand. They also have some sort of beef that of course we once again have no idea about, and she just pretty much describes that she doesn't believe Reed was not straightforward in the past as he should have been, and that he wasn't somebody that would take a lead, that would commit, and that often the work separated them. Geez, lady, you're asking for a lot. But the whole problem never gets solved, by the way. I'll touch on that later. Anyways, we just get introduced to probably the funniest part of this movie, Ben Grimm finally transforming into the Thing. So he transforms, all right, and he calls his wife because, well, he's a little distraught, all right? Who you go to? You go to the person you love, the person you're the closest to. And he actually gives a really emotional statement, and he talks about how him and his wife agreed beforehand that, you know, they'd stay together no matter what. I was actually so moved by this speech, unironically. Like, it made me forget how bad this movie started out.
Remember when we used to say together forever, no matter what?
Yeah.
He's a good guy, he hooked it up.
He barely even gets the chance to explain himself, and she is terrified. Like, you know it's him. You were just talking to him a second ago. You don't even want to fully understand the cause. The worst she can say is no. This is basically this scene right here. He also meets a guy that wants to end his life, and he's like, hey man, I'm a rock, I have it worse than you. Hey man, that's true, that's pretty fair. But all of a sudden he sees Ben and it's like he just doesn't want to take his life no more. But it gets even worse because his wife shows up after he just saved a bunch of lives and looks at him in disgust and drops her ring. You cannot make this up. I'm not lying when I say all these scenes come one after another. This movie is rushing and trying so hard to give his character more depth in a way that makes the audience emotional, but it ends up being the goofiest thing ever. You can't just go from his wife screaming at him to a man wanting to live after seeing him to his wife dropping his ring in front of him, all in like the span of 5 minutes. This movie refuses to give structure to the development of his character. He's kind of underdeveloped in these movies. Anyways, Victor and Reed are mad at each other now because of the accident, and yeah, sometimes these performances just look really awkward. I may be tripping, but it looks like they are fighting the urge to look at the camera. Anyways, the rest of this movie is based on the Fantastic Four wanting to get rid of their powers. Now you guys may be wondering, what about the building up of Doctor Doom as a villain, aside from that awkward argument? You might even think I'm skipping over his arc because we're just getting this far in the movie. He literally has no arc. He has no building up, nothing whatsoever. Typically, it's not hard to execute this with superhero movies. Spider-Man 1 was like the perfect blueprint of this, going back and forth from Peter to Norman, and it ends up adding up in the end. Even for movies in the Avengers, we see this happen with the villains and then the superheroes. It's really just not that hard to execute. And anytime we get a scene of Doom, it's just nothing important. It's just him just doing something. And then also Johnny randomly decides he wants to get in a dirt bike competition. Once again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with fun scenes like this. Before its runtime, it does nothing for the advancement of this story. But oh yeah, once again, more Reed and Sue babbling about things we've previously never knew about. Alright, this is happening again. But yeah, Doctor Doom, he steals Reed's invention and he convinces Ben to secretly use it so he can go back to normal. It ends up working, but in the process, Doctor Doom gains powers. More of them. I don't know how that worked. So now the Fantastic Four have to stop Doctor Doom. So Ben's like, screw it anyways. I want to be a Rock again. But we get to a point where Reed is frozen and Sue, this looks so funny. This looks so funny. I think this is, he's like a Smurf a little bit. But Sue confronts Doctor Doom, and this part may be some of the worst and most laziest lines of dialogue ever.
You always thought you were a god. Now back off.
Susan, let's not fight.
No. Let's.
Like, who wrote that up? I'm convinced a middle schooler could do better. Like, if I was just to skim through this whole movie of characters talking, I wouldn't have a hard time finding something similar to this. Anyways, reach the final act of the casual superhero movie's big final boss fight ending. Now, around this scene is where I noticed, yeah, some of the acting just is not that good. It's like I'm watching cosplayers dress up and try to act. Some people try to say, well, the only good thing about this movie is the casting. And actually, I disagree. Sure, the casting selection is probably the most closest and accurate looking to their comic book counterparts, but it looks like in a lot of these action scenes, Ian Grufford, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, and Jessica Alba, they just look like they're trying way too hard to make their facial expressions superhero-y. It's just forced. You don't force the superhero face that hard. The one good thing I will say about this movie is that Chris Evans is easily the perfect casting choice for Human Torch. He does a good job and he plays into the character pretty naturally. That's the only good thing you're gonna hear from me. Alright, Chris Evans, he's pretty good. Anyways, the final fight goes down and Doctor Doom, I'm about to say this sentence, and you better take me serious. Anybody that tries to defend how Doctor Doom is in this, you better listen. The final fight goes down, and Doctor Doom dies to a fire hydrant. Yes, that is a real sentence. If you didn't think the silliness of Doctor Doom couldn't have been any worse in this movie, guess what? You're wrong. Also, why is Reed Richards smiling? Like, you knew Victor Von Doom yourself, dude. At least, like, have that casual superhero empathy, man. I already mentioned before in my Silver Surfer video how Reed Richards, he just shrugs off the death of one of the military leaders. This is not superhero charisma. Like, he's not the only one smiling though. They're all like literally cheering and celebrating with the audience, clapping after they kill Doctor Doom. Like, sure, it's something if you arrest him or take him, whatever. Superheroes never do that. They don't kill, but most importantly, they don't emote and celebrate after a kill. Batman wouldn't even dare to crack a smirk if the Joker had to die. Anyways, we cut to the ending where Reed and Sue finally get engaged. So you're probably wondering, did their issues get solved? What about that? The issues we have no clue about, that we don't understand about. Did they? No, guys. Nope. It doesn't. They get solved. Throw their issues away. All right, we forced that into the movie to develop their relationship somewhat, but we really didn't. So we just wasted your time. Like, if you're gonna shove this in our faces, at least use it to your advantage to make their engagement make sense. The whole pacing of this movie is treated like an episode. It's ridiculous. A lot of people like to say, well, this movie is like a fun bad, which I just cannot find the nature of that in this movie. I would even go to say a majority of bad superhero movies are entertaining. You know, they have that fun bad charm to them. But this one is just, no, it's disrespectful to the Fantastic Four, man. Guys, I like to have fun. Okay, so if it means turning on Alvin and the Chipmunk movies, just shut my brain off and just giggle, I'll do it. But not for this one. I just hate this movie with a passion. Yeah. Anyways, Doctor Doom, he's alive. So I said he died, but he's alive. I lied. I'm alive, but I'm dead. I'm alive, but I'm dead. So we're gonna get more comedy for the next movie. Yes, sir. Let's go.
Hey man, this look pretty good, man. Where your clothes at?
Now I'm gonna try and talk about this movie as quick as possible. All right, I'm not gonna spend too much time. I already talked about a lot of the issues this movie had in my Silver Surfer video. Now this movie is not like the first where it's just a straight up disgrace. All right, this movie is, I would say this movie is more of the fun bad movie. This is a movie I don't hate as much, and I could see myself rewatching multiple times. Not because it's good, don't get it twisted, no, that's not what I'm saying, but because it's enjoyably bad. So in the first scene, we get a scene of Silver Surfer, you know, basically just giving his introduction. He's just giving his warning to Earth. This is the one good thing I can say about this movie, just Silver Surfer. He's not that bad. People like to complain about him being nerfed in this movie, but I actually kind of like it, and it makes complete sense to advance the main plot of this movie. But what I don't like about this movie is pretty much the rest of this movie. So as I mentioned before, the first movie focused a lot on the story of Reed and Sue having some past relationship issues that we have no idea about. They also got engaged, right? So you know what this movie does? It decides to keep it as the main storyline for the first 30 minutes of this movie. Why would you do that? You are simply just doing too much. We already know they're married. All right, you did a terrible job, you know, executing their marriage, but whatever. 33% of this movie shouldn't be about Reed and Sue getting married. We know that. They should have been married by the first movie, but why are we still holding on to this? I don't know. But anyway, Silver Surfer, he's finally, you know, shown to be him and not a, you know, a ball. And he meets Johnny, and this is where Johnny's powers glitch because he lost the fight with Silver Surfer he had, and they start wasting more time and goofing around. I'm gonna keep mentioning how both of these movies are like 90 minutes long. I can do that all day, all right, because they do nothing to use the value of its time given. There's also more conflict between Reed and Sue. Dang, can you guys just get it together and be a normal couple? How much conflict do you guys have? But yeah, they end up debating on splitting up with the rest of the group, possibly to focus on their future. You know, that also ends up going absolutely nowhere and is forgotten by the end of the movie. Doctor Doom, he makes a return in this movie for no reason but to be a man-child. He has no true motives. Again, who would have guessed that? And it's just a cliche villain that has to be bad for no reason. This whole subplot of adding him back into this movie, it does nothing for the actual movie. You didn't even have to bring him in here. You would have thought they learned from their mistakes, but all they did is take the mistakes I mentioned from the first movie and amp it up. And it's not like Doctor Doom is an idiot. He's one of the coolest villains ever. They also decide to team up with Doctor Doom when he finds out Silver Surfer is weaker without his board. Reed, he constructs a machine and disconnects Silver Surfer from his board, and you know, Silver Surfer loses his powers. And then, you know, he has a little discussion with Sue Storm, and this is where we find out, you know, Galactus is coming, but we also find out Galactus is a cloud. I'm not gonna even waste my time explaining why this is so dumb. Everybody already knows this is like one of the worst ways to have a villain like Galactus be in a movie. The trope of having some villain be absent the whole movie to send his little minion to do all the work is already annoying itself, but it stretches out to the point we don't even get to see Galactus at all. At this point, they switch up. All right, they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have captured Silver Surfer. Maybe that was a bad idea. And maybe, I don't know, teaming up with a lunatic like Doctor Doom was also a bad idea. Doctor Doom, he later sneaks on and he steals the board. Why does he do this? I don't know why he does this. Don't ask me. I don't know why. I don't know why he did. I guess he just wanted to look like a cool villain. Yeah, I cannot make any of this up. It's like he shuts his brain off and he just does things without an explanation as to why. He makes me laugh. I just look at the face, whether it's off the mask, I just look at it and I just think it's funny. It's not his fault. It's not his fault they wrote him this way. Anyways, Doctor Doom, he takes down the military leader and he takes him down to smithereens, which was a pretty important character, by the way. And like I said earlier, yeah, Reed's just like, whatever, who cares? Not a big deal. I already talked about how this group they just don't understand compassion, man. You gotta have compassion as a superhero. You gotta care, especially Reed Richards. You're the leader, dude. You're the worst. You're the worst at this. Oh, Reed Richards, brother, you can't be doing that. Anyways, forget about Cloud Galactus now. It's time to rescue Silver Surfer and take out Dr. Doom. But wait, Sue Storm is dying and she kind of dies. It's not over. Silver Surfer revives her and he takes out Galactus and he sacrifices himself and the day is saved and they finally get married. The end. Amazing storytelling, guys. You know, maybe I was just a little bit too triggered today, but I think it's okay to be triggered sometimes, to just rant and let it out. Today was that kind of day. Fantastic Four, Fox era movies, you did it to me, man. But you know, like I said, today was just that kind of day. If Fantastic Four First Steps is bad, everyone at Marvel is gonna have to sleep with one eye open. This movie better be good. I'm not kidding. I'm not talking like casual MCU normal movie good. Yeah, wow, this movie is okay. This is a good movie. We like this movie. I'm talking really good. My standards are higher now. They deserve to have a movie that is above and beyond. It has to balance out all the garbage we've been given. I want to leave that theater saying, finally, wow, a really, really good Fantastic Four. I like this Fantastic Four movie. This movie, I like it. I love it. Not a man. This movie was pretty good. I don't want a pretty good. I don't want a good. I want a rule. I want to say, ooh. But yes, thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.